Throughout history, women have fought for their fundamental right to vote, a battle that spans across continents and centuries, shaping the societies we know today. This is the story of the women's suffrage movement, a global fight for equality, justice, and the recognition of women as active participants in the political process.
The movement for women's suffrage wasn't confined to one region or culture. From New Zealand to the US, from Britain to India, women everywhere united to claim their rightful place in democracy. In the early 19th century, the US was beginning to embrace ideas of liberty and justice, but one major group still lacked rights: the women. In 1848, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, along with Lucretia Mott and other pioneers, organized the first women's rights convention in Seneca Falls, New York. Lucretia Mott organized the Seneca Falls Convention. Susan B. Anthony was the first woman on a U.S. coin, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton wrote the Declaration of Sentiments. The Declaration of Sentiments called for equal rights for women, including the right to vote. This was revolutionary, at a time when women's place was considered solely in the home, not in the public or political spheres. Women like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton would devote their lives to the cause. They traveled, spoke, and organized relentlessly, but they faced fierce opposition still. Across the Atlantic in Britain, the suffrage movement took on a new, more radical form. Led by Emmeline Pankhurst and the suffragettes, women used bold and at times controversial tactics to demand their rights. The suffragettes organized mass protests, hunger strikes, and even acts of civil disobedience. Many were arrested, but their courage captured the attention of the entire world. Emmeline Pankhurst famously said, "We are here not because we are lawbreakers, but because we are law keepers." This dedication was central to the movement's success. Though New Zealand, the US, and Britain are often the most remembered, the women's suffrage movement did spread across the entire world, each region with its unique challenges. In 1893, New Zealand became the first self-governing country to grant women the right to vote. It was a monumental achievement, and the women of New Zealand inspired suffragists across the entire globe. Australia followed closely behind, granting suffrage to women in 1902. Although Indigenous women still face disenfranchisement for many years. Canada's women's suffrage movement began earlier than many other countries, but it wasn't until 1916 that women in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta gained the vote, with other provinces following. However, it wasn't until 1940 that Quebec women received the vote. In India, the suffrage movement gained momentum during the struggle for independence from British rule. Women like Sarojini Naidu and Mahatma Gandhi's wife, Kasturba Gandhi, were instrumental in both the independence and women's suffrage movements. Milestones in women's suffrage were often hard-fought and came in waves. In the U.S., it took decades of activism before the 19th Amendment was finally passed in 1920, granting white women the right to legally vote. Yet, for many women of color in the U.S., the battle was far from over. Voter suppression laws, literacy tests, and poll taxes were used to disenfranchise African American women as well as other marginalized groups. It wasn't until the Votingrights Act of 1965 that many African American women could fully exercise their right to vote. The right to vote wasn't just a victory in itself, but a catalyst for change in every part of society. Once women could vote, they began to challenge the laws and policies that restricted their opportunities. Today, women hold high government positions, lead corporations, and fight for social justice, all thanks to the determination of those women who came before them.